Skin. We all have it. The largest organ of the body, the textbooks tell us. An array of layers, capillaries, and nerve endings. The ultimate barrier to infection, to dehydration, to the cold. It's our identity. It's our genetics. It's completely unique to us. Glance at the person's hands next to you. Don't be shy, get familiar with one another. I want you to notice different things about their hands. The color, the markings, the texture. Maybe some extra texture if they've forgotten to moisturize this morning. No judgment, just an observation. Now I want you to notice those subtle differences, potentially a small cluster of moles. While you may notice these differences, do you think our future clinicians are equally confident in addressing all the skin types we can see in this room today? Let's think of a patient. Let's call her Kay. Kay noticed a marking on her cheek. It was quite raised, quite rough, unlike anything she had seen before. Concerned, she visited her GP. The doctor inspected her cheek, and after a quick diagnosis, she was given the probable takeaway of dry skin, for which she was prescribed hydrocortisone, a mild steroid. Months passed. The marking had gotten bigger, drier, more irritated. It looked angrier than before. Kay returned to the GP. The GP inspected her cheek once again, but this time with a hint of uncertainty and concern. A referral was made to dermatology. After further investigation and a biopsy, her diagnosis was confirmed: melanoma. One part of the story I didn't share with you. Kay has brown skin. Black patients are 3 times more likely to receive a diagnosis of advanced melanoma compared to white patients. Patients with darker skin are 3 times more likely to die within 5 years of a diagnosis of melanoma compared to white patients. While I quote these statistics at you, I often think to myself, we're so used to categorizing people, labeling them according to their skin. But black and white are 2 ends of a very large spectrum of color. According to my makeup brand, I'm a biscuit shade. And I know how much the NHS love their biscuits, but I wouldn't recommend researchers start labeling patients after bourbons or custard creams. Representation isn't binary, but a spectrum of people and groups and experiences. As a medical student, I often observed the clinical environment. I remember one afternoon sitting in a GP reception in a small quaint town off the southwest of England. A slip of paper was hanging off the reception desk, a warning sign for staff to use on patients they were concerned about. Small black letters typed across the thin rectangular slip. It read, "Strep A may contain a sore throat, headache, and fever, along with a fine pinkish and red body rash with a sandpapery feel. On darker skin, it may be more difficult to detect, but will have a sandpapery feel." So, I could imagine what this would look like on a patient with white skin, fine, pinkish, sandpapery. But what would that look like on me, on my sister, on my family, on my friends, on my neighbors with darker skin? The vague descriptor pulsed in my head, difficult to detect. It felt like the signs, the symptoms, and the experiences of those with darker skin were treated like an afterthought. Representation starts with education. It starts with classrooms and cases. It starts with inclusive language and models and images. Consider sunburn. The textbooks describe it as red or pink patches that peel. But what about those areas of hypopigmentation we see on those with darker skin? Take acne. known for its red, angry pustules that spread across the face. But what about those skin-colored spots or those areas of uneven pigmentation we see on those with darker skin? Those few but powerful words transform the lived experiences of these conditions from homogeneous to diverse. Thinking back to Kay, who was diagnosed with melanoma. Melanoma, which has been voiced and described thousands of times, irregular colors, irregular borders, irregular textures. So why was Kay and so many others like her diagnosed so late? Because the language we use primes us to notice patterns. It determines the confidence we have in treating patients. Like that little slip of paper at the GP practice, on darker skin, it may be more difficult to detect. Language catered to one group in this case, serving one type of skin while treating the others as an anomaly, an addition, an asterisk. Some of our educational models today reinforce these biases. I remember one lecture vividly from my second year of university. The room was full of anatomical diagrams, layers of the skin meticulously displayed. But through all the intricate terminology and explanations, one word stood out to me: melanin. Melanin, the natural substance within our skin that determines pigmentation. We delved into its variations, eumelanin and pheomelanin, and its role in protecting us from UV radiation. We could recite how melanin related to skin cancer and its involvement in cell turnover. What we didn't explore in that classroom, however, was how melanin could impact the rate of recognition or the accuracy of diagnosis of so many medical conditions we see today. For instance, let's think of the meningitis glass test. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not be. What it is a widely known life-saving test that relies on noticing a distinct rash not fading from the skin under pressure. Simple. But what happens when your skin is darker? It's nationally recommended that you check lighter areas of the body, like the palms of the hands, the soles of the feet, the whites of the eyes, the roof of the mouth. And so I ask you, why are we still teaching a diagnostic test that relies on looking at lighter areas of the body rather than acknowledging that this test really fully functions for a certain type of skin? You see, melanin is more than just the pigment that defines our skin. It's about visibility. It's about that distinct way psoriasis rosacea appears on the skin, or the masking of meningitis being hidden from the clinical gaze. I ask you this: why was it left to me, a medical student, to advocate and educate others on the vast role of melanin within medicine, when it should be me and my peers receiving that education from the start of our careers? Some would argue advocating for representation is a professional obligation. But if it was, why are we still seeing studies that span over 25 years only finding 18% of images of non-white skin in leading medical textbooks? Why, only 6 years ago, did we find 5% of non-white images in general medical texts? These aren't just statistics. They demonstrate a systemic gap with very real, very human consequences. Imagine this scene play out. You take your 6-month-old son to the GP. You're concerned about changes in skin color. A clinician unable to differentiate between a bruise and a birthmark. The scene ends with you being questioned and accused of child abuse. Devastating, right? I think we can all agree. This was the reality of Lakshmi Thapa in July 2024. A clinician unable to differentiate between a bruise and a birthmark on a child with melanated skin assumed child abuse. Mongolian spots are a common genetic condition seen in children with melanated skin. This isn't just a clinical mistake. This is a failure of education and representation. Representation should be a mandatory requirement of all clinicians. I wouldn't be here standing today as a proud South Asian woman in a red sari like this at an academic institution like this talking about representation if it was a professional obligation. Passion and courage are key in making a change. As I walk down the corridors of my local NHS hospital, I see the haunting legacy of those who have suffered under medical racism and bias. I see the history of humanity that has shaped medicine today. I see Henrietta Lacks, an African-American woman whose cells were taken from her without her consent, those same cells that have gone on to revolutionize modern medicine. I see Dr. J. Marion Sims, the so-called father of modern gynecology, who performed surgery on enslaved black women without anesthesia, to today's disparities in pain management amongst ethnic minority women. These stories aren't just chapters in a history book. They linger, and their repercussions echo throughout our healthcare systems today. But our story isn't over yet. I see the clinicians, educators, and students nationally and internationally acknowledge that change is overdue. I see them recreating their educational textbooks. I see them calling for more inclusive research, from dermatology webinars to YouTube videos to Instagram reels to textbooks. I see them taking control of how they learn. In these stories of resistance and reform, we look back at our colonial past and see how it's impacted our biased present. And today, we feed the flames of that movement to redefine how we teach medical conditions and how we acknowledge our presence within the medical world. When I created my website, Skin for All, which showcases the importance of diversity within medical education, I saw it as a love letter to humanity, demonstrating that anyone can make a change. Whether you're at the start of your training, you're a family or friend who has come to support the incredible speakers today, or someone like me, a student about to enter their penultimate year of medical school. We need to review the texts and images we use in our educational settings. We need to review the sources we use in our clinical practices. We need to support grassroots work, spreading awareness in multiple communities. As I stand before all of you here today, I ask you to join me. Promote inclusivity, be reflective, and have those open dialogues. We all have a role to play in forging love letters to humanity that will impact populations, perspectives, and mindsets for a lifetime. What letter do you want to leave? Thank you.